I just had an excellent meeting with Mr. Anastasiades, and yesterday I met with Mr. Akıncı. So we now have had thorough discussions with both leaders on the reconvening of the conference in 12 days on the 28th. And I can now break the news about where we will be. We will be in Crans-Montana. It's on the other side of the Geneva Lake and up in the mountains in a nice secluded spot. So the conference will be there, and I've informed both leaders about the practical arrangements around this, which they appreciated. And I would also like to say that in addition to the work we do from the UN, the Swiss government is also extremely helpful in technical preparations and in providing these facilities. So Crans-Montana is not in Geneva town, it's in Crans-Montana, which is in the region, but on the other side of the lake. 12 days to go. This is really an historic opportunity. We all know that is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult when we are there in Crans-Montana. It's also going to be a lot of work that has to be done before we go there, because we don't want to come there empty-handed, which is why we're working on a document which will guide the discussions on the security and guarantees chapter, which is the chapter that has received less attention and which is now very important to highlight, but also, of course, preparations on the other issues, because there will be interdependent discussions on all outstanding issues. And both sides have confirmed to me now that they go there with the ambition to solve the problem. We know that is not a given. We have to be honest about that. It's not getting easier just because we go to Switzerland, but there is a determination and a willingness that I can register now that we go with that ambition. And what we can do is to prepare as well as possible for this to be a success. But of course, again, at the end of the day, it's up to the courage, the will, the determination, and the leadership of the leaders, but also at this point of the guarantor states, because we will have Turkey, we will have Greece, we'll have the United Kingdom there as full participants, and we will have the European Union as an interested party and observer, as we had in the original Geneva conference. How long will it take? We don't know. We are facilitating this for such a way that it can last for weeks, but it doesn't have to take weeks. It depends on the time needed, but we want to make sure that we have the chance to actually wrap up all the strategically important issues. If we succeed, there will still be work, and let me say that right away. It doesn't mean that all work is over and we can go straight to referendum, but the aim is to have a strategic understanding of all those issues that are potential deal breakers, so that the leaders can say this will happen, and here's the list of tasks we still have to do. And now you will ask, what if it doesn't work? But I'm not going to speculate on that, because we go in there with the ambition to succeed, and the Secretary General and I will do everything we can to make that, to help make that a successful outcome. The decision, after all, is on the leaders and the guarantor powers.
Can you explain us a little bit about the format, sir? Because we're hearing different things from the two sides about parallel negotiations, but one side is saying there has to be progress on security if all the other issues will be discussed. How is that going to work? Can you explain that?
Well, I mean, I can answer in principle, because in the statement from the 4th of June, which the leaders agreed with the Secretary General, it does spell out that they will happen in parallel. That's clear. It also says that there is an agreement that the chapter of security and guarantees is highly important in order to arrive at the final settlement. So it highlights one chapter while it recognizes that all chapters will be discussed. And the practical way of doing that is to do it in parallel, literally at separate tables, in separate rooms, that there will be ongoing discussions on all issues. But we have to separate them physically, because some of them pertains to the sides and the guarantors, and others are for the sides alone. So we're having a more or less a physical arrangement that reflects this principal agreement. Now, of course, both sides will tell you that in order to do B, we need to see A. Because what's A for one is B for the other, if you see what I mean. So our task as the facilitator would make possible to get to these final let's say, trade-offs or the final accommodations that requires insights into other chapters. Is that easy? No, but I think it's doable. And that's what we're discussing here now and what we will be discussing in the coming days.
This common document you are preparing, is it a precondition that both sides need to have to be at least in an agreement in order to prepare this document?
Well, our commitment is clear that the document will exist. It will be there, and we already for some time now and over the last weeks, literally immediately after New York, we started to collect inputs to this document, and we have made clear that we want all sides' views to be well represented, and we also are presenting a structured way of discussing these issues. Of course, all sides also are adamant to tell me that they're not going to do their negotiations before the negotiations. So we're not preparing an outcome document, and I say outcome document because in more traditional negotiations between states, you're preparing a draft text and then you go to see if you agree. That's not possible here. Nobody actually wants that, because that would mean that you're actually not negotiating in Switzerland, but you're doing it before. But we want it to be a document that is helpful to try to, let's say, decompose into the various elements of an issue which traditionally has been very difficult to touch because the starting points have been quite opposed. And we have ideas which we're dealing with them. I cannot spell them out here yet because we're still in the process, but I'm quite optimistic, and I don't think the document is going to be an impediment to start negotiations. I hope that it will be helpful to make them successful.